Well, thanks, everybody. Thomas, I don't know if you want to walk, or Annette, if you'd like
Sure.
to walk me
Yeah.
through the agenda, and then we'll turn it over to the Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, well, welcome everybody, and thank you for, I believe, our second meeting. I'm really excited, as I said before, that we're marching along, and I am so grateful to Kevin and Justin for just, well, holding us together as we march through this, and it's been wonderful, and thank you for that. And thank you to the mayor and the deputy mayor for this support. I think this is something, as I will have said before, we'll probably say 1,000 times, this is something that I think, yes, it's for the time, it's for us that are here, but it's really for those coming after us. And if we can set something and put something in place that can support their creative lives, then I think we've done something wonderful. So welcome. Let me just run down the agenda real quick for you. The deputy mayor will speak, give a little welcome, and then Justin and Kevin and the rest of the chairs will do a little overview of sort of near things that are coming down the pike. And then the real important meat of this gathering together is to set up these subcommittees. This is really where the work is going to be done to put this structure together. And we're hoping that that's where all of your excitement and motivation and enthusiasm is. Basically, there are two committees that are sort of priority for us right now. Arts investment guidance, and this is the idea that we need to identify and figure out what the projects that are currently coming down the pike, how we need to be involved with that, and then guiding a little bit how we spend the funds that are current at the moment. And then the second committee will focus on the Creative Community Empowerment Plan, which consists of writing an RFP for a consultant or consultants, however that goes. And also within that plan will be the sort of structure and processes for actually setting up or establishing the Arts Commission. So after that, we'll talk about the timing of when you should be meeting and action items for those meetings. Okay, I think I've covered everything. And I'll turn this over to James. Thank you, James, for being here.
Awesome. Oh, thank you, Thomas. I appreciate it. And I also want to thank Sean Dunwoody, of course, and Annette Ramos, and you as well, Thomas, for being co-chairs. I know, having worked with all of you in the past, what a great team to take this on, because you don't have to do anything. You guys are dynamic, and I'm glad that you're working to help kind of move all of this forward. Mayor Warren's ERA agenda includes an art equity fund and establishing an arts commission, which I think you all know, but it's really because the mayor believes we need to empower our artists that have been overlooked and unfunded for far too long. And, if I could just say something, my experience, over the years, I've held a few different roles in the community. I was the deputy county executive at one point, and now as a deputy mayor. I've been involved. I was involved many iterations ago with the Arts Council, and what I always found was there was the biggest voices, if you will, within the arts community were always heard very well, but it was difficult to get to hear the voices of those individual artists working in the community at their craft, who were busy trying to not only do their art and accomplish what it was they were trying to do, but in many ways running a business really, and didn't have time to engage and be heard. So I think that, being able to find a funding stream, but also a voice for those folks is critically important to me, because I know that they're there and I know that we need to hear what they have to say, but often we just don't have the ability to do it. So part of what I want to do today on behalf of the mayor is encourage you to make sure each of your voices as participants are heard as we advance this effort. But also I want to ask you to make sure the voices that we don't know, that we don't necessarily always hear throughout our neighborhoods are heard, and that they're empowered as well. And the mayor looks forward to seeing all of the great work and the artists that you will be empowering through this AC3 initiative. And I think we're eager to see what the arts empowerment plan that you create will look like and what it will entail. And one of the things that I think we often don't do when it comes to the arts and when we're trying to promote it and have the community understand the impact, right? Because we all know there's folks who are patrons of the arts, whatever that means. It might mean that they're a person of vast resources and they write checks and they are supportive, or maybe just someone who puts their time and their talent behind promoting and embracing and supporting the arts in whatever way that they can. But the community at large, some of those folks who sometimes don't appreciate the arts, what they don't understand is that this is an incredibly important way for us to create jobs within the community. This is an incredibly important part of our economy. That's a tangible that too many people don't understand. And I think often folks who have no appreciation of the arts can understand why it's important that we invest in the arts when they understand that it means a job for their neighbor, when it means something important for our economy, whether that's tourism or other things. So this work is really important. And I think part of what we need to do is make sure that the folks who want to be naysayers understand that this is much bigger in what we're trying to accomplish as a community than just simply saying, we support quote unquote the arts. And I don't want to minimize that aspect of it, because to me, a community without art and without music and all of those things doesn't have a soul. But I always want to make sure that we're solidifying our place, if you will, in the community conversation, and that people understand that this is about livelihoods and it's about jobs, and that's a really important component. So I just want to encourage you in what you're doing, and I'm excited to hear about everything that's on the rest of the agenda. And on behalf of the mayor, once again, say thank you, thank you, thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. We appreciate it. With that, Thomas, do you want me to move into the slide presentation and kind of talk a little bit about the AC3 in the near term?
Yes, go right ahead. And then Sean and Annette can jump in there whenever they feel inclined.
So we're going to work into that slideshow presentation. Great.
And can everybody see the slide, the first slide there? Awesome. Very cool. Well, thank you, everybody. Thank you again, Deputy Mayor. Thank you, Thomas, Annette, and Sean for spending your time. And thank you to Kevin, who's been a tremendous partner through this whole process. Just what I wanted to do today is kind of talk about the near future, and then a brief look out as it relates to where we see these AC3 going. I would say as I go through this, don't hesitate to kind of ask questions as I go through it. Want to make sure people understand the vision. Also, too, as our chairs or anyone kind of correct me if I missed something or I kind of miscategorized something. Certainly did our best to kind of capture the vision, but understand that sometimes things are lost in translation. So year one for AC3. Well, the two major goals as Thomas mentioned, really are to create an arts empowerment plan and a commission. And I think the plan kind of, as it's developed will inform the actual, what the commission will look like. The steps there, I won't belabor it. I know Kevin will talk more about this later on. Has been mentioned, we'll, draft and issue an RFP, select a consultant or consultants. I think, some of the vision is to have a local consultant that has a strong understanding of the community, and then also an experienced, urban arts firm that's, helped other communities have success doing exactly what we're trying to achieve. And then I also think too, the consultants will work with the community again to create the plan, and then ultimately the what form the commission will take. And then I think
Justin,
yes.
Sorry to interrupt, but I think you might have in slideshow mode, but that screen isn't being shared. Well, we're still seeing just the cover slide.
Oh, are you? I'm sorry. Let me try to select the right screen here. My apologies. Let me try this one more time. All right, let's see if I click on that. And then share, are you seeing the year one slide?
Yes, now I see it.
Okay, hopefully when we do this, I'm going to do a quick test to see if I go back and forward if it actually changes. And does not appear to be advancing. So I will figure that out. Let's see. That's interesting. I don't know why that's not. Oh, I guess, well, there we go. It went. Now, here we go. It is caught up to me. All right. So are we seeing the year one slide? I apologize. We're good? Awesome. Cool. So for year one, the second, I think an exciting thing about year one, is there's about 100K in funding available, and I'll get into the buckets of money in a second, but to immediately empower artists, right? And really, I won't belabor that other than to say what's next is that, it's all types of art and there's no limits. You tell us, what you want to do with those dollars, and we'll work to facilitate that. And we're excited about the subcommittee coming together to do that work. And, that kind of leads us to the next thing, which is, the future years. And then we'll get into the dollars. So again, year one, right? We talked about what we're going to do, we're going to have hopefully the create the Arts Commission structure, provide that structure for funding, and make sure that we begin to empower artists. Years 2 and 3 would be a more formal process that would come out of that, right? Would be an ongoing regular process that has feedback and accountability loops for the spending of arts equity funds, right? So people understand how they can get engaged and then share feedback and make sure we improve that process over time, knowing that, year one will be one form and hopefully years 2 and 3 will be better. But people will know what the arts empowerment plan is and be able to see it take action. Years 3 and forward, I think once we have initial success, there's the opportunity to, maybe leverage additional funding. As Annette likes to know, I like to tease her, maybe that means the county getting involved in some form and there's dollars there, or state partners, or maybe the private sector. But again, really, we think the initial success will lead to those additional dollars, and the commission can guide how we obtain those additional dollars. And then I think the thing that's important years going ahead, and Thomas and the other chairs have mentioned this before, is to become stewards to preserve, enhance, and protect public art. And what's that mean, right? To a certain extent, public arts infrastructure. Once we build it, we need to maintain it, make sure it stays in good form. And, if it's damaged by chance or there's a need to, need to fix it, that we have the dollars and resources, and that we protect that, quite frankly, what already exists, the proud legacy of public art in our community. So that'll be an important portion, and thanks to Blue and some of the other folks I've had conversations with, in recent days to kind of talk about, not only preserving it, but making sure we properly catalog and understand the history behind that art. So on to probably maybe the biggest thing for some folks is, so where's the money? The 3 areas of city arts funding. And I want to walk through this and make sure people understand it. And I want right off the top want people to understand that the Arts Equity Fund is truly new dollars. I mean, I know that there's a history of the 1% for the arts that was kind of had a fits and starts with funding, but these are new dollars, a commitment from the mayor to provide dollars year after year within the CIP for the Arts Equity Fund. And so how do those dollars get into the Arts Equity Fund? 1% of capital projects over $1 million for public art. So that means when we build a road or bridge or building that costs over $1 million, 1% of that project, so say $10,000 of every million, right, flows into the Arts Equity Fund. So there are some existing dollars that are there. And really what's been identified by our budget department for spending in year one is about $236,000 in startup funds. And we think kind of roughly this is a breakdown that makes some sense for year one, that there'd be 100K for the development of the plan and the commission creation. That means engaging the consultant, all the outreach and work behind that. There's $100,000 there to immediately empower artists. The subcommittee would get together and figure out how to allocate those dollars. And then really kind of setting aside the remainders, a contingency for unknowns. Maybe there's cost underruns for the consultant, maybe there's cost overruns, maybe there's really a neat art opportunity where we want to take some of that contingency to do more in terms of empowering artists. But that's kind of the rough budget for year one. And that's in the 21-22 proposed budget from the mayor to actually happen. That's not that's a proposal before city council. So that's a real, in essence, real money, pending their approval. And the initial conversations, credit to city council, have been overwhelmingly positive as it relates to this project. Again, the Arts Equity Fund would be replenished each year. And, and the kind of, we think that a fair estimate, a reasonable estimate is around 200 to 250K each year as the CIP projects move forward. into the Arts Equity Fund. You know, and I think that's an average. You know, that really depends on how many roads, bridges, and buildings are getting built in a given year. But you know, when the commission tries to plan going forward, we think that's a reasonable number for them to plan around in terms of you know, a consistent amount of dollars that they could bring to the community. Questions on slide 1 in terms of that first part, the Arts Equity Fund, the first pot of money?
I think there might have been clarification on this the last time, but I just want to ask this question again because I can't remember the answer. So that 1% is coming out of what the city contributed to each of these projects, or 1% of the entire budget of each of these?
It's of the city portion, Rita. It's the city portion of the project. You know, so that it's basically within the bond covenants. Without getting too technical, you can pull a portion of the bond, you know, the portion of the borrowed dollars really into for other purposes without violating the bond covenant, and that's how this funding will come through to the commission and to the fund over time.
Mhm.
And so yeah, other questions on that? Oh, okay. Nope. Seeing none, I'm going to move on to the next slide. So where's the money? The second area of funding for arts projects. You know, these are the one-time capital projects. So, you know, we're going to pull 1% from those big capital projects into the Arts Equity Fund. But let's say we are doing a big road or bridge or building project. You know, just like we have going on right now at Charles Carroll Plaza and the Sister Cities Bridge, there's actual dollars set into that project for a big, I believe it's about $600,000 for a public art element. And Kevin, if I got that number wrong, feel free to correct me. But in other examples are, you know, there's the Ridgeway 104 Lake Ave sculpture, the red sculpture there. Mixed opinions on that, about that piece of art, but I'll you know, I kind of shared that. I'll leave that alone for now. Art Walk obviously is another example. You know, the Rundell Library Terrace project, which is advancing. I think Bree could probably speak to that better than I can. Is another project where, you know, these are big projects where we literally plan within the capital project to have an art element. And I said here the funding's hit or miss because, you know, it's not truly hit or miss. It's when we diligently plan with a road or bridge project to include public art. So, you know, that doesn't mean they're going to happen every year. You know, there may be multiple ones in a given year. There may be none in a given year, depending on how the CIP falls. But those are going to be larger projects. I mean, certainly, you know, I think there's a lot of, you know, a lot of opportunity there. And that's something certainly where we want the commission, you know, and in the near term for the AC3 committee to provide some guidance. Questions on kind of the second pot of dollars? Okay, I'll move on to 3, but feel free to stop me at any time. So the third area of city arts funding, and this is something that's long-standing, and certainly the deputy mayor used to manage these dollars, you know, when he was in this role, you know, and our special events team does this now. You know, Orlando's certainly familiar with this as it relates to the Puerto Rican Festival, is about the $600,000 we spend every year for, you know, for 20 festivals and events. And I didn't put it on, it didn't make it to the slide here, but, you know, jazz was one of the largest ones. And, you know, that's kind of, you know, what happens there in the future. But Fringe, Puerto Rican Festival, you know, hopefully Orlando will be coming back. I mean, pending some COVID guidance. Holiday Village, Cary Fest, Pride, Carissa Street, Park Ave, Cornhill, and others. You know, there's a lot of these that we do. You know, a lot of it, you know, quite frankly, you know, goes to more that concert side of things, but it does contribute obviously greatly to the, you know, what people enjoy throughout, you know, throughout the city on an annual basis. And really a lot of those dollars go to pay for the logistical costs, you know, whether that's, you know, the barricades, the traffic enforcement, you know, porta potties, you know, you name it, all the things you need to put on a successful. Questions about area 3 and this, you know, these dollars are still here. So we really have 3 distinct pots of money, really, you know, 2 that are kind of pre-existing, 2 and 3 are kind of pre-existing, and 1 kind of not being entirely brand new, but a new commitment to actually, you know, make sure that the Arts Equity Fund gets funded.
Is there a breakout? Sorry, quick question. Is there a breakout in that money that you're spending there of what goes to logistics and what goes to arts projects and such? That would be interesting to look at.
It's broken down, Chris, by festival, but so what we show is, and then each festival kind of puts in their own, what we call SEFA, special events funding application. So, we do share, and I don't know if it's actually in the budget book, but I can gladly give to you what the 21-22 SEFA, proposed SEFA budget is. So you can see that, and then each event really kind of tells us, how they want to use those dollars. So those SEFA applications are available as well. I don't know if we have them in a single spreadsheet, but if there was a particular festival, or if you said, hey, I'd like to see all the SEFA apps, we'd gladly share those with you.
I think Blue has a question.
Sure, Blue.
Hey, thanks. You mentioned, I think you mentioned that some of that 600K is for security, street cleaning, stuff like that. So does that mean that that a portion of this is actually in kind, meaning the money is sort of paid to the festival, but then the money from the festival comes back to the city department that handles the security or the cleanup, safety, stuff like that, services that the city actually provides for the festival? So does that mean that 600K, some of that 600K is actually in kind?
Correct. Some of it's in kind. It's for services that we provide as it relates to the festival, like the show wagon. Like a lot of festivals ask to borrow the show wagon, which is our large portable stage with, speaker setup and what have you. And so, there's cost for delivering the show wagon, that because, DES provides that in essence, communications and special events absorbs the cost for them to bring the show wagon.
So then thank you. So then I guess my follow up there is, if you take this, so this 600K, is this essentially what the city has been spending, including in kind, has been spending on arts support thus far? Because that 1% hasn't previously been actively spent. I think you said there's 200 and some in there ready to go, ready to fund a project. Is this 600K roughly equal to the total that has been spent on the arts thus far?
Well, I would say it's equal to what we've spent for these concerts and festivals within SEFA. I mean, I think Kevin can speak to, there's been, other public art projects like we talked about in the second bucket in terms of the larger kind of public infrastructure art, I would call it, in that second bucket. So there has been, and then there's also been, just like recently, I think there was approved for North Clinton Avenue, and I think Rena's involved in that project, right, where there's been kind of one-off, additional funding, as it relates to the arts. But again, right, there hasn't been a dedicated fund going forward for art projects, and that doesn't preclude the city from doing additional one-offs, working with the commission to do that going forward. But now there will be a dedicated fund, to kind of hopefully broaden the number of artists that that the city helps support.
I'd say, Blue, that, this is basically our the special events funding is the special events funding. I think Justin outlined that. The rest of it's been very ad hoc. So there could be years when there was a significant more amount, a significantly larger amount added to this. That's where I think we're trying to get away from, is to have it be something where we have, we're more deliberate in how and what we do with these dollars. Although I would say from my past experience, you've got legacy events that are programmed into these dollars. And what I think, from my mind's eye anyway, what I think is be important is to see where there's areas to expand what we're doing under special events to embrace other things beyond the legacy events. Because in a way, these dollars are sort of already automatically programmed. As much as we try and have a process where everyone applies, it's awful hard to end these legacy events that are really important either to neighborhoods or to some of our other groups and stakeholders. So, we tried a few years ago to add some dollars in for buskers and some other things, and in the end, we weren't really able to be as successful as we wanted with that. But I really think the opportunity here is to look at what we're doing with these special events, look at what we're doing in special events and how we can expand that to be about some of the other things that we'd like to see that bring vibrancy and that will help support the arts beyond these legacy events. That's just my kind of 2 cents.
Yeah, could I just add to that I think it's also what we're doing is creating a structure and a process. So, and primarily I would say the fund, but what, as somebody mentioned, I think Justin mentioned about this sort of being ad hoc in the past, I think it's important for us to really focus that what's needed is a process. What's needed is a structure so that the equity of how this is done has somewhere to actually hold on to, and to be well, just to have an equitable way of doing things. So I think that's kind of that's really why we're here in a way, is to make sure that there's a process.
Thanks.
Yeah,
Yeah, and then I
and,
guess after this, I'll step back. Sorry, I have one other thing there following on Thomas. Totally agree. There just seems to be so much to redress and step back and add structure to. And thus far, I've heard that the committee will have input and some form of the committee will have oversight over the fund. Does that mean that the funding for festivals like this, which currently goes through special events, will also now be wrapped underneath, and there'll be some purview, some oversight and or guidance given from this committee toward this type of support, which is, like you said, this is a big part of the city's past support for festivals and performance, et cetera.
You know, if I could speak to that, yeah, I'd say yes. I mean, I'd say we want to go through the process of, you know, with the consultants and commission to figure out, you know, what is the most equitable way to go through allocating these dollars. You know, with the understanding that, you know, to be plain, sure, there are legacy events here that are important to the community that, you know, that are going to continue. You know, I don't think the city has any interest in, you know, not, you know, funding or supporting, you know, the Puerto Rican Festival or Cary Fest or Pride to the degree that we have in the past. You know, certainly we're gonna, you know, certainly, you know, we're gonna want to do that. But I think, you know, if there are areas where we say, hey, we can do something different, we can do something unique, we can reallocate these dollars to, you know, support more events. If we look at it this way, you know, those are the conversations we want to have and involve the commission in and figure out the structure, right? That's again, to Thomas's point, where it's not ad hoc to do that, right? Where it's formal that we have those conversations.
But so Justin, correct me if I'm wrong, that, you know, what you just expressed, that would primarily be about the future commission as opposed to the immediate purview of this AC3, right? Because this group has a lot of work to do to get its legs under it to figure out how to just handle the first couple of projects of doing public art. Whereas the commission, which is the long-term game here, you know, perhaps that does play some sort of a role with respect to this third category. Is that right?
Yeah, I that's how I envision it anyway. I mean, I would think that, you know, we have a process that works. We have, you know, I certainly think we can have conversations amongst this group as it relates to those things. But I think long term, you're right. It's part of the commission planning where we establish the relationship between city special events and the commission as it relates to this pot of funds, right? And really come up with a formal process to involve the commission in that. Cool. Other questions? I think I've got one more slide. I want to make sure let's see what I've got.
I just wanted to point out one more thing about this, and both the deputy mayor and Justin pointed out pretty clearly that there are a number of ways that the city is investing in the arts beyond just this category. And I just wanted to mention sort of a softer fourth category that we didn't feel the need to get into with a slide per se, because it's not really going to impact this group too much, but there is quite a bit of investment into sort of cultivating the arts or cultivating artistic endeavors among different people in the community through our library system, and Bree and other colleagues of hers do that sort of thing. And certainly Sarah Scott and her colleagues in Recreation and Human Services Department, like through Rock Paint Division, that sort of thing. So there's kind of like a lot of miscellaneous but really cool, important things that are being done through those groups and others that, you know, again, I would just kind of call that a softer fourth category, but this, you know, whether or not this group influences that moving forward, we'll see. But just to point out that there's just so many different ways that we're investing in the arts throughout the city.
Well, definitely, Kevin, thank you. No, I appreciate that. That's an important add. Other questions? Let's see I'm going to try to advance the slide. Yeah, no, that's it for my end of things. Any other questions about the three pots of money before I kind of turn it over to Kevin? Thank you all very much. Appreciate it. Kevin, the floor is yours.
Thanks. Yeah, and maybe I'll just kind of intro this and then pepper in some thoughts along the way, but maybe have a Nat or the other chairs to talk a little bit more about this. But moving forward, we're seeing the opportunity for this group to kind of start to fill a couple of subcommittees that you see listed there. And then, we would continue to have regular meetings of the AC3, and then we would have subcommittee meetings as well. And Annette or others can talk about the timing of those sort of things. But if you want to get into, what the sort of purview is for each of those subcommittees, and then when we get to the community empowerment plan, after you sort of intro that, I could talk a little bit more in depth about what that looks like.
Yes, thank you so much, Kevin and Justin. We really looked at the bulk of what needed to happen in this year, and the essential piece is around the allocation and the prioritization of creative projects in our city. And looking at that 100,000 with the reserve of 37,000, and how can we create an equitable process for engaging artists, and especially those that are underserved or invisible, or often invisible and not known to the larger major art organizations and the general community. So there is a specific work around identifying artists and art groups that may need this funding, and deepening that connection to the city. They could be performances and any art form. They could be events. They could be connected to your organizations or multi-organizations. And one of the things I wanted to say prior was that the city and the county have been doing arts funding in very much siloed, ways. So this commission will serve as that connection cable to art organizations, to, for example, the Puerto Rican Festival, and I'm talking about you, Orlando, and the Fringe Festival are going to be working cohesively together this year, sharing resources and sharing promotional and marketing opportunities. That's a win-win for both organizations and the greater, larger community. So the first group will be the Art Investment Guidance. We want you to self-select a group that you're going to be in. We would like for that subcommittee to choose amongst yourselves a cohort or a co-facilitator or co-facilitators, but someone will need to take the lead on scheduling your meetings, note-taking, and what your outcomes will be. We hope that you'll spend the month of June doing that and then come back to the larger group in July. We didn't want to eat up all of your time in meetings, but really use the meetings moving forward to report back our findings, our insights, and the plan of action that your committees have chosen to present to the larger group. I'm going to let Kevin jump in and talk about the Creative Community Empowerment Plan, and then we'll go into the specifics of that. Did I cover everything there? Yeah. So the guide use of the current funds and identifying and prioritizing art projects. Kevin, can you speak to the Creative Community Empowerment Plan?
Sure, thank you, Annette. So this empowerment plan, the CCEP or the CSEP, whatever we want to call it, working title, right? I said to the chairs the other day, like, I guess I see that how this might be a little bit of an abstract concept because honestly, none of us have ever done something like this for a whole community. So I wanted to just take a couple of minutes to go into that a little bit more depth so we understand what that is and what an RFP might look like, and most importantly, the role of a consultant might play in that. So this is an action that we called for in the Rochester 2034 Comprehensive Plan to develop some sort of arts master plan, and we evolved into that name. And it's really just kind of a blueprint for the community about how we can have a more robust arts and creative ecosystem in the Rochester community. You don't just hope that great things happen. You got to make a plan for how to make those things happen. And in this case, while we're making a plan, we're also doing stuff in this committee. So it's not just going to be waiting around for a couple of years. There's going to be things going while we're creating the plan. But like I said, the plan is kind of that blueprint for how we're going to invest in the arts and creative ecosystem. And I'll just give you a few examples of what the plan might get into, and keeping in mind that this subcommittee, that for those that choose to join it, will have some influence over the kind of the scope of work and the topics that we get into for that plan, because we can customize it to meet our needs as a community. And another upfront thing I'll mention too is the plan, at least as we envision it now, is going to be primarily focused on the city of Rochester. But there's going to be room, I think, in those discussions and in the plan itself to kind of look at the bigger picture of the county and the region, so to speak. But there certainly will be a city focus. So for starters, the plan, the process and the actual plan we come up with, we hope will come up with spell out the actual structure and the process for how the Arts Commission will work. So that's the plan process where we're going to dig into that and all the logistics and all the legal and charter issues and of how an Arts Commission will function, and that's sort of the follow-up step to this group. We also think that there's room in this process to look into how can we reestablish or form a new Arts Alliance kind of organization, so in the vacuum left by the Arts and Cultural Council, but also recognizing the emerging groups like Arts in the Loop and Rock Arts United and folks like that. We hope that a consultant working with local folks can help us chart a path to creating a new organization that will serve as that sort of nonprofit side of Arts Alliance and arts advocacy. So that's hopefully an outcome of the plan. But we want to look at other things like, how can we increase the economic impact of arts in the Rochester area? How can we improve like equitable access to the arts? How can we nurture young and emerging artists, even to the point of like, I think someone else mentioned this before, if we're going to be commissioning public art in say parks or bridges or what have you, and we want to do a commission to get a local artist to respond to, there's some great capable local artists, but they might not have experience with the actual process of responding to a commission. So that's something that we can help nurture and provide that path forward during this plan. So that's just an example, some examples of what this plan could look into, but we'll go into a little bit more depth at the first subcommittee meeting. And then as far as the consultant is concerned, I think, what we, Justin and I and the chairs that have met are, at least for now, picturing is that it would probably be a team of consultants that would likely have a combination of some folks that are local and some folks that are out of town. One, out of town folks, because they have experience seeing how it's being done in other cities. And two, because quite honestly, among the sort of design firms in Rochester, and I've worked for a couple of these folks, they might be able to play a role on this team, but none of them have really done an arts master plan per se. That's a very specialized, rare kind of plan to do, and I'm not aware of any of them having that specific experience. So there are folks from other cities that have done that sort of thing, and if we could, one, partner with some local folks, and also, most importantly, partner with this team here, the AC3 and the subcommittee, I think we could have a nice combination and depth in the team that's working on that. So those are just some initial thoughts, and hopefully that helps folks understand a little bit more what that might look like when we get to it. And Annette, I guess I'll turn it back to you in terms of how we're actually going to start to populate these committees.
So
unless anybody has questions.
So Sean, I'll have you chime in as well. So basically today and now is the time for you to choose the area or either of these subcommittees. And there might even be smaller subcommittees within them. You could take that creative community and power plan and divide up the work as needed. And think about what your skill sets are, where your dedication and passion are in this work, And I encourage and prod you to self-select the group the committee that you would like to join. Sean, do you want to add anything to that?
And
I
I'm sorry,
think,
real
could
quick,
you,
we had a
could you
request to.
stop the slide really
Yeah, thank
fast? Yes, yes, yes. I know. Oh, I think when we discussed the other day, I think it's really, we really want you to find your place and your position that you feel your strengths are, where you would like to help guide your committees. So we're all adults and we're all creatives and can make things happen. So we really want you to step up and make those moves. And we would really appreciate that. And we will be chiming in, myself, Annette, and Thomas will be setting up a schedule when we will be attending your committee meetings as well, just so we're all on the same wavelength and connected as things move forward. So that's the 2 cents I want to add. Thank you.
Yeah, so with that, the next 3 months are critical so that we can actually spend that $100,000 in our own neighborhoods, in our own city, activating the creative economy, and as well as laying the foundation for how the Arts Commission will function this year and the years to come. So who would like to be the first person to step up? Rena, I'm calling you, girl. Where
I'm
do you
setting
see
up
yourself?
saying which committee, is that what I'm doing? Yeah,
Yeah.
the subcommittee, I would say the arts investment guidance. I'll stick with that.
Okay. And you know, here's the deal. You might wind up going there and saying, wow, I think I can be of better service and X, Y, and Z. So you can, you know, at least the first month we'll be kind of feeling it out. Thank you, Rena.
Thank you, Rena.
One thing I did notice is when we talked about, well, I saw it mentioned in the slide, consultant or consultants, and there's interviews, selection, and all of that. Will the committee as a whole be involved in that? So in that selection, I assume it would be like a selection process, and then we meet the candidates, and there's, you know, at some point they get passed on to all, because I would definitely like to.
Yes, that's the committee's task. Yeah.
Yes.
So even
the committee, even that.
Yeah, I was looking at that and thinking that probably could have come right out, because obviously we're all going to want an opportunity to give input into the selection of a consultant or more.
Yes.
So the goal and the objective is for these subcommittees to bring back and report back to the larger group so that they then empower us to make choices and to help them move along the work. Okay, Joanna, where do you think you would like to be?
I'm gonna wait till the end and see where you need me. Although probably.
Oh, I forget, you're a city person.
I'm a city person, yes.
Forget
Yes.
Orlando Ortiz,
Yeah.
where would you like to be?
I'll go on the second one, the Creative Community Empowerment Plan.
Great. And Tanetta, my beautiful artist, what group would you like to be in?
Honestly, wherever you feel that the deaf perspective, for example, accessibility might be most needed, making sure access in the community, maybe at a festival, for example. I feel like that could be an important thing. Make sure that I'm there to be a point of contact, or if anyone has questions about how to make something more accessible. I want to make sure deaf people are able to go to different events, as well as deaf children too.
We want you everywhere.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Can I just add a couple of points of clarification in case it helps folks? I know the first point under the plan development is develop the RFP. That sounds really boring, doesn't it? No one's going to have to sit down and pound out pages of text. I'm actually going to.
That's me.
Yeah, Joanna will help with that. We're going to have an initial conversation where we hear from you about what you hope to accomplish in the plan, and I'll translate that and work with Johanna and others to the actual text. And then you all will have the chance to react to it, refine it however we need to. So you won't have to do the boring work. But also I should point out that that subcommittee is really just about getting from today to the start of a plan. And then it's about the process, right? And then after that, once we get a plan going, everybody's going to be involved in some fashion, whether it be in this group or helping us go out into the community and meet with folks. So once the plan starts, everyone here will have some kind of a role.
Thank you.
Could I go back and suggest, Antonietta, that maybe the first committee is a really good one for you, maybe?
Sure. Yeah, I agree with that. I also think, I mean, I have, oh, I was still talking a little bit. If you could wait for the interpreter to finish speaking, I think he was just a little behind before, and I had a couple more comments if everyone doesn't mind. I just wanted to say that as far as, sorry, she's freezing for me a little bit. For the, I'm gonna try to,
For the committee that I just said.
yes, so for what Thomas mentioned, that first committee, I do think it's a good idea. Yes, you can go ahead with that. And that's it. I'm done. Thank you.
Okay, don't make me pick you people. Blue, Orlando, come on. This is, we're adults. Blue, go for it.
Sure, I'll sign on with Orlando, the Creative Community Empowerment Plan. And I guess my comment on both of these, just real quick, is that I'm gonna try to bring to that committee, and I hope we're all remembering that there's so many amazing things happening in our city that need support now. They need support yesterday and a year ago. I want to caution all of us as creative people to not just snowball and think of what's new, what's next, what can we develop, as opposed to really remembering to step back and redress and really invest in what we already have on the ground here that needs meaningful, ongoing, annual support. I could just see this developing into fun, new, and then that money, limited as it may be, ends up really going toward new things, and we forget that we have wonderful resources here. What got us to be the art community that we're also proud of, and as we said, is outsized. So that's my little spiel, and I'll try to bring that to that committee. Thanks.
Chris?
I'll happily join the Arts Investment Guidance Committee. So.
Okay. Annette, Christina, sorry, darling, I didn't see your hand up.
No, I was just gonna go next.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think the Creative Community Empowerment Plan speaks best to my skill set.
Annette? We can't hear you. You're on mute.
You're on mute.
I even clicked it. You would think I would go in arts investment, but I don't want there to be any potential, I don't know, conflicts or anything. So I'll go with the Creative Community Plan. But I think I have a resource that the other committee can use for their work.
And that's exactly what we're looking for. So even if you're on one committee, you can reach out to any of the other committee members and share a resource, share an idea. That's what we're here to do. Who have I missed? Holly, your city peeps.
Dan, you haven't got.
Dan, I'm so sorry. I've seen you twice today.
I was thinking along the Creative Community Empowerment Plan.
Okay. So I think we have everyone that's actually, Nithya had to leave, so we will send an email, Kevin, to Nithya Padilla. Any other non-city members here? Fantastic. So I think what we'll wind up doing is Kevin will send out, or the city will send out an email identifying the members of those committees. And here's the hard part. I'm going to recommend that some of you who are a little more organized or feel that can do that, to identify one person in that group. And maybe it's just the 3 co-chairs that we will reach out to you and send you an email and say who would like to take the lead on this or leads on this. And then scheduling your first, if not 2 meetings in June, so that we can come back in July with some reports and some progress to move us forward. And I will heed Blue's comments. There's so much right now that is on the verge of dying in our city, in the arts community. So we really have the responsibility to move forward arts, and especially for small and mid-sized organizations. And then of course, curating and cultivating the next generation. Do we have any comments from the co-chairs or anyone else want to chime in? Annette?
And a question, we are missing some folks, right? That were part of
Yes.
the first meeting, okay.
Yeah. Nithya had to leave early, and I think there was one other
There's a few other people that are not here, I think. We'll reach out to them.
Yeah. And then
Sorry, can I ask the city employees to just drop in the chat what your role is? I'm trying to keep that straight. Some of you I know, but some I don't, and just to kind of keep that straight so we have an idea of who's who. That
Rena,
I can start. I'm sorry.
We'll have that sent to everyone in the group. That's a great idea and suggestion, so that everyone here knows who the city connections are. Great idea. Thank you, Rena.
Maybe just do that for everybody. I mean,
Yeah,
you know,
that's what I said.
You were going to say something, Joanna?
Oh, I just wanted to point out, I was going to do all the boring stuff. And if that helps as a lawyer, I can do all that wordy, boring stuff. Just start with that.
And Rena, thank you for that question. And I'll use that as a plug to remind folks that we have a shared file on Google Docs that if you go to, and if you don't have the link, just email me and I'll get it to you, but I sent it to everybody. And within that Google Docs folder, there's a couple of things that everyone should look at. One, there's sort of the roster, and it lists everyone in this group and the organization or sort of background they're coming from. It lists all those city staff and the department that they're in. And then there's another subfolder in there with some example arts master plans from other communities. So if you're interested in that, take a look at that subfolder and browse through those examples. That could help influence the direction that we go. And then the last thing I'll mention related to the subcommittees is that there's, for the city staff that are involved here, there's certainly room for you on one or both of those subcommittees, because you have areas of expertise that make a lot of sense. Like obviously I'll pick on Holly here as our city engineer, who's involved with some really awesome Rock the Riverway projects and other big capital projects. She's going to play a pretty key role in that investment guidance group, and certainly folks from budget office as well will help with that.
That's what I was wondering about. Is there anyone from the Budget Bureau a part of this right now? Who is that? Is that you?
Christina?
Yes,
Hi,
Christina.
this is Christina. Hi, how are you?
Oh, good. So you have been with us. You were at the first one as well.
Yes, I have been, and I'm included in the emails as well.
Okay, so some of those questions around tracking and trying to figure out what has happened prior to this you'll be present. So at least we can I'm still trying to get a handle on some of that, of the pieces that are around tracking and kind of figuring out what areas, things are happening in, concentrated in, what are not. And it's helpful to have someone who is constantly looking at all of the budgets and how things break down present. Thank you. for being
Yes, thanks.
So one of the other things I wanted to mention, even though we have been in Zoom for the first two meetings, you can decide to meet in person if that is the comfort level of your subcommittee. So we will identify a location at City Hall. There's a small conference room. We're hoping that we might even get council chambers to host one of our meetings in, or subcommittee meetings. So I just want to encourage you to get together and decide how your subcommittee will meet, and it could be in person or via Zoom.
Happy to
Yeah,
offer the
it's-
library as well. We have a meeting room available on the first floor of our central library that also includes the garden, so people can meet outside if weather allows.
Totally, yes. I'm there, girl.
And it looks like Thomas is beckoning us to his backyard. So that works, right?
Drive by tonight, honey. So Thomas and Sean, do we have any closing remarks or comments for the committee?
I'm feeling confident in everyone. I think this is excellent, and I think we've got a great road ahead of us. And I thank you all once again.
And Sean, just to sit in a Zoom watching you work brings joy to my day. So thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Sean, for working on
I
the
agree.
little ordinance.
Antoinetta says, I agree too. I love seeing it.
Thank you.
Thank you to everybody. I'm so excited about your thinking. This is such a group with broad thinking and depth of thinking, and that's what's needed. You know, what Blue just brought up are things that we tend to forget. What Rena just mentioned are things we started to slip by the side. So all of that, all of those ideas, all of that thinking is necessary. We really, really need it to create a foundation moving forward that's going to be equitable. Yeah. So thank you.
And I just wanted to add thank you again to the deputy mayor for joining us. And thank you to Max and Wanya for being our interpreters today. Thanks for doing your best to keep up with us. Nice job.
So have a great weekend, everyone, and thank you again. You'll be getting an email early next week confirming your groups. We'll have reached out to the remainder of our committee that is not here and ensure that they also have self-selected. And then the city team members will probably hit all of the meetings in June just to make sure that they're connected to the work that you're doing. Thank you, everyone. It's just such an exciting transition to finally see this come